Okay, so thank you for coming. My name is Trevor, doing a oral presentation for my communications class. I go to Slcc Community College. So I've decided to go on the M16 service rifle. A little background with me. So I did 4 years in the Marine Corps in the infantry, so I spent a lot of time with the weapon. So I figured it'd be something that at least I can discuss and actually know what's going on. So here we go. So starting off, here's the magazine for later. All right, starting off. Okay, so our country, it's built and lived on people who have served. A lot of people die for this country, and kind of the iconic image that we have is like a Marine soldier, somebody with a rifle, that rifle being the M16. Let me get a picture. There we go. So anybody you don't know, that's M16. You see it in virtually every action movie that goes on, so it's pretty image that's easy to be recognized. So starting with a little bit of history. So back after World War II, they were looking at getting a new weapon. The one that they were looking at from the World War II was the M1 Garand. They're switching over. So the M14, that was one of the possibilities. Didn't really like it. They were testing it. Wasn't really working out. So they were saying, we want something with a smaller caliber. That's the actual size of the round. Smaller caliber, shoots a little bit quicker. They figured that would be more effective. So they did some more testing. A company called Armalite, they developed what's called the AR-15. That was what they really liked. Armalite, they ended up selling the patent to Colt, who designed the M16. It's the same weapon. They just sold the patent over, lost a lot of money. That's probably bad move on their deal. So M16 through Colt, that's just the name. So AR-15 is virtually the same weapon. So that's what it is specifically. Okay, so that's more information. So 1963, a new attachment that went on. So they changed over M16, upgraded. They called it the M16E1. What they added was this right here. Called easy way to call it forward assist. So the weapon itself, it has a bolt inside of it, and the bolt will retract whenever the round's fired. New round will come in, bolt comes forward. That forward assist, because the weapon was jamming all the time, you press that forward assist, it would lock the bolt into place. A lot less malfunctions. Weapon would fire better, much better. There we going on. So that started right there. XM16 E1, strange name. Okay. So they gave it to the Army Special Forces, the Army Airborne. Everybody else was using that M14, that weapon that wasn't quite so good that they wanted to transition over to. So this was actually in 1963. After that point, when they saw how awesome this was doing with this new little attachment, they decided to mass purchase them. So a few numbers real quick. We got 1963, they ordered 80,000. 1964, 35,000. In 1965 and in 1966, they ordered 100,000 new of these weapons. They mass shipped them over to Vietnam, ended up winning the war. Well, as much as that war was won. So that was what was primarily used in Vietnam until 1973, as soon as that war was over. Some more information as well. New slide. Okay, that's just a picture of a disassembled M16. Some more information as well. So the weapon itself, and once they were doing testing, it was shooting about 3,300 feet per second. And the bullet itself, because it was so small, it would like cartwheel in the air. So it was causing a lot more damage too. So instead of just spinning around in like a through and through round, when it cartwheeled and when it entered, causing a lot more damage. So at close range, it wasn't quite as about 100 meters and closer, it would penetrate just through and through. Further than that, since it was cartwheeling, once it entered, it had a small entrance, but the exit wound would significantly be bigger. So it was to our advantage quite a bit as well. So it was really a good move on our part. So it was definitely an obvious new choice. Okay, so we'll go on a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual specific numbers of the weapon itself. So I'll pull back that image. Okay, so we'll just talk about some specifics about the weapon itself. We'll finish with the history. So we are going to be taking a quiz, so make sure you take notes. Just kidding. Okay. Okay, so a little bit of the weapon itself. So this weapon is 39.36 inches long, so just over 3 feet. It weighs 7.78 pounds, empty, no magazine, no rounds. Alright, a little bit more information. So the weapon itself, the operating, how it does work, is that it shoots a 5.56 millimeter round, so 2.23 inches, pretty small caliber. It's gas operated, magazine fed, so the magazine will go in. It's used the whole functionality is the weapon. Pull the trigger. It's going to have a little pin inside there because the round is sitting right there. There's a pin, hits the pin, the round goes out, and this, it's going to get shoot back because the gas, there's a little explosion that goes on. So they initially shoot back. So the bolt's going to go back there, a new round's going to come in, it's going to relock. And that way you can tap the forward assist, just in case it doesn't go through when you put a new round in. When you're firing, you shouldn't have an issue. The problem is when they were putting new magazines in, the bolt wouldn't be securely fastened to the face, right in there. So if they try to shoot and there'd be a malfunction, or two rounds would go in at once. And so when the gun's down, you know, you're definitely not winning the fight right there. So that was why it was a huge, huge advantage to them. Okay, so it can shoot the three different capabilities. Semi-automatic, that's just round is fired every time you pull the trigger. 3-round burst, so you fire it, 3 rounds go out, or full auto. So that was also a nice new feature they had, shooting pretty quick. Okay, and then there's what I want to go over next. It's the steps of how an actual round works in there. So it's a little bit confusing. I'll explain it best I can. So the very first thing that's going to happen, let me get a new picture. So here's a picture of the bolt. That thing was sitting right there, and then that's where it goes. So imagine this is on top of that, and the bolt is right in there. So the bolt is going to, let me make sure I have this right. It's going to chamber the round. Once it's chambered, it'll lock into place, like I said, and it's going to lock. It's going to fire the round out, and so it's going to unlock, shoot it back. Once it goes back, a new round will come in. It'll extract that old round, come back in. It'll feed the new round into it. And then once that new round comes into place, this bolt will drive it forward, and that will be set with that new round. So it's confusing. It chambers, locks, fires, unlocks, extracts, ejects, and then it cocks that new round in. So that's how it actually works. Alright, a little bit more information. So 3 different types of rounds for this weapon. There's a regular 5.56 ball. That's the size of the round. It's just a regular round. It's got a little green tip. You shoot it, it goes out. That's all. Then there's a dummy or a blank round. It doesn't actually have a bullet in it. You can load it in. When you shoot, it's going to shoot compressed gas out, and then the shell is going to launch out the end. That's all that's going to happen. Use that for training. Last one is kind of a cool round. Call it a tracer round. It looks like the ball, but there's about 1 millimeter extended on the end. Has some red gunpowder on it. So when you shoot it, it looks like you're shooting Star Wars guns. It's going to shoot red rounds. So if you're ever shooting at nighttime, or if somebody's picking a target, one person says, hey, follow me, they'll shoot at the target. That way everybody knows what to shoot at. So those are a lot of fun to shoot. Definitely for me. Okay, and then for the weapon itself, to clean it, use what's called CLP, cleaning, lubricant, preservative. It basically looks like vegetable oil. You can scrub the entire gun in it. Because when you are firing, of course you can have the gunpowder that locks up right in there. It turns into carbon if you don't clean the weapon. It just doesn't shoot. It's just grinding with all that carbon, and eventually it'll just stop shooting. So CLP, that's the secret. You could probably use vegetable oil, to be honest. It'd be pretty easy. Okay, a few other things. Alright, so I have a magazine. I'll pass it around so you can all look at it. I have probably like 100 of these at my house. This one I took to Afghanistan twice, so I spray painted it. It was pretty cool. So just a few things. What we'll go over is immediate and remedial action. So when you're firing this weapon and it doesn't work, you have to know immediately what you're going to do. And if that doesn't work, kind of like a remediation action. So immediate, it's pretty easy. So if you're sitting there, I'll get it looking back. So if you're sitting there holding this weapon like this, and you're firing it, and it stops. You pull the trigger, nothing goes on. I mean, the first thing you do is, oh crap, what do I do? So what you want to do, tap the bottom of the magazine right in there to make sure it's fully secure, because sometimes it's not fully secure. So you tap it, you're going to cant it sideways, so this part is facing down. And then right here, right above that forward assist, you can pull the bolt back. You're going to pull it back, it's going to release whatever is down there. So if there's a round that just didn't misfire, or it didn't fire so it wasn't misfire, it'll just launch it out. New round will go in. So tap, rack it, you'll camp it over, and then when you let it go forward, you're ready to shoot. Easy enough. So you can do it pretty quick. I mean, honestly, if I was shooting, it takes 1 second. So that was pretty easy. Remedial action, if you're still having an issue, that's where it gets more fun. You have to actually pull the magazine out. What I would do is set it right there underneath my leg, because it's pretty easy. I wouldn't forget it. So pull it out. You have to lock that bolt back, so that bolt is going to get locked back in there. and then you're gonna have to actually observe in there, so that when that bolt goes back, it's an empty chamber. So there's times when there's 2 rounds in there, or there's a possibility something's stuck in there. So you look, make sure nothing's going on. If nothing is, you're gonna drive that bolt back forward, rack it back 3 times. If you're good, take your magazine, put it back in, rack it back, feed the round, aim in, sight, fire. Simple enough. We'll be testing on that as well. Just kidding. I'll pass you guys to pass this around. Those magazines, 30 round max. It's usually too tight because once you get 30, the spring is so tight on the bottom. If you shoot around, it almost launches two rounds in at once. So if someone ever shooting that before, 27. Don't ever go over 27, or you're almost likely to have a misspeed. Okay, time for some cool stuff. So the M16 itself has gone through quite a bit of transformations. So there's been about 10 different models that have come out that have been used in the military. But I mean, you've seen that first picture of that black one compared to this. The only real difference is shorter barrel. It's got a retractable buttstock, and then this instead of having that this smooth piece of plastic, they put this special type of metal on it with these grooves, so you can hook different things to it. A few of the things that you can add right there. It's a Surefire. It's a flashlight, very bright. Here's just a sight. This one's not actually a magnified one. I don't know if any of you play video games. This one just has a window with a red dot reticle right there. So you look in so you know exactly what you're shooting at. Right here, that's a little button for the actual pistol grip. You press that button, it's got to have a laser on the other side, so your laser would turn on. So you don't have to mess with the laser up there. You can hold it, turn laser on, turn laser off. I had it on my M4 when I was deployed. It's pretty convenient. Alright, a few other attachments that you can add. I got a super cool one here. So this is a magnified sight. So it actually, usually they go about 36 times in, and then it would have just a little like triangle. And then depending on how far you were shooting, is how far you're going to aim. So top would be within 100 meters, the bottom part of the triangle 100 to 500, and then below that it starts getting inaccurate is all. This is called an M203, the 40 millimeter grenade launcher on the weapon. So you can load a shell in, rack it back. That one's really easy. Load a shell in, close it, pull the trigger. And then you pull it out, pull that shell out, and put a new one in. You can shoot 1 in 3 seconds. That's just a suppressor, because I thought that was cool as well. So M16 has gone through a lot of changes in our military. We still use it today. Still use this is actually an M4. The only difference is retractable buttstock, shorter barrel. So it's virtually the same thing. All the innards, all the guts work the same. The bolt goes in and out the same. The actual weapon itself is the same. So good choice that we went over, brought it on to Vietnam back in the 1960s. We still use it in Iraq, still use it in Afghanistan. It's a great weapon. So thank you all for being here for my presentation. So.